morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, where today we're going to start off with another great giveaway from our friends at Dolby Atmos. Yes, in place of today's viewer question, there is a viewer contest where you can tweet me and Dolby Atmos your one-sentence review for John Wick. Yes, they've given me 3 copies to give away to you, and the winners will be those who write the best one-sentence reviews for the film. So again, to enter, we've done this a few times now, but just to refresh your memory, or if you're new to this, what you do is you tweet myself and then hashtag Dolby Atmos followed by your one-sentence review for John Wick. And I know we're taking up part of your 120 characters there, but that'll just make it part of the challenge. So let's say you have until the end of, let's make it till the end of this week. So the end of the day, Friday, this coming Friday, February 6th, to get me your tweet. Give me about 24 hours to see it, but you'll know that I have seen it if I've favorited it. All right, so I look forward to seeing all your one-sentence reviews. And again, Dolby Atmos is proud to provide really top-of-the-line technology for feature films to create beautiful sound landscapes. For instance, I recently posted a video that they did showing how Angelina Jolie used Dolby Atmos technology to create a soundscape for Unbroken. And I'll actually put a link to that video in the video description as well in case you missed my tweet on that. And they've been very nice to us here at Beyond the Trailer. And again, they've given us 3 copies of John Wick to give away, which of course utilizes Dolby Atmos technology. All right, so that's the giveaway. Let's get into the 3 stories of the day. I've got some comic book and genre news for you guys, but let's do a bit of a palate cleanser, and that's a very big story, a surprisingly big story actually. It's been trending off and on for 2 days now, and that's that they're going to publish a sequel to the famous book To Kill a Mockingbird, which of course is also a famous movie starring Gregory Peck. It's considered one of the best movies of all time and dealt with some very serious subjects. It's a little bit like Inherent the Wind, whereas that deals with evolution, this deals with race relations, I believe, in the South. So it's a film that was very much ahead of its time, extremely well regarded, and now it turns out that there's going to be a sequel which showcases Scout grown up, and the name of it is, let's see here, Go Set a Watchman. Another Watchman title, and they might have to consider changing that maybe, but it's so iconic because, you know, it's the sequel to Kill a Mockingbird. We'll just have to have 2 Watchmen properties, right? Of course, I'm referring to the famous comic book, which became a pretty well-known movie as well, but it's still, I think, most highly regarded on the page. So what's the history behind this book? Well, this is where it gets a little interesting, and you know, I think that on one hand, how could you not publish this? But when you hear the story, I think it speaks a little bit to the gimmickiness that's even seeped into the publishing industry. You know, people like to say that Hollywood is devoid of all integrity, but I think the truth of the matter is that in every creative field, business is still the most important, you know, be it fine art or publishing, anything. So basically, it turns out that Harper Lee wrote this book first, way back in the 1950s, and her editor said, you know what, the flashback sequences in this book, when Scout's talking about her experiences as a child, are my favorite part. So I would prefer that you would take them out, extrapolate them from this book that you've written, Harper, and go write a new book, which became To Kill a Mockingbird. Extremely well received, one of the most famous books of all time, and again, an incredibly well-known film. So anyway, it turns out they saved this original book that Harper Lee had written. It was, you know, in someone's drawer, I guess, or shelf somewhere. And the publisher found it and called up Harper and said, hey, we have the book, actually. We found this. It's been around here the whole time. What do you say we publish this sucker? And Harper said, why not? So that's basically what happened. I think that I hope maybe they kind of corrected it a little bit, because if it wasn't good enough to be published the first time, and an editor was like, you know, this is okay, but still, why would you, publish it again? I think there's the curiosity factor. I would be a little more excited if Harper Lee had said, oh, wow, you found it? Let me work on it, instead of just publishing as is. I mean, I guess there's, again, the curiosity factor. It's part of history, I guess, at this point. But still, I wonder if it can ever achieve the same level of success as the original book. Now, you better believe that Hollywood wants to get their hands on this. The first is a Universal picture. I'm sure that they are, really looking into acquiring this. Who knows? Maybe they already have dibs on it, although I doubt it since this was never intended to be published, right? And then also, I'm sure every actress who could play Scout as an adult would also be like telling her agent to get a copy of that manuscript. Now, also, this is something else. You might not be aware of this, but the publishing industry has a very good relationship with Hollywood because Hollywood loves to turn their books into movies. And of course, that sends nice royalties back to the publisher and author. So they often will give copies of books to production companies to read and decide if they want to purchase before the book ever goes out to the general public. And that's why often you will see a book's film rights be snapped up before it hits bookshelves, which actually works for everybody because that's a great news headline to promote the book, being like, wow, this book is so hot, it's already been snatched up to be a movie. You better read it now. Now, some people like myself go, well, I'll just wait for the movie. But there are a lot of diehard readers out there still who, really enjoy reading it first and experiencing that way. So I'm sure that they are happy to send out copies of this to the publishers, and I think it would be great and even more, make it more of an event, a publishing event, if they can say, oh, go set a Watchman, which comes out later this year, is already going to be a movie. And maybe they could say, and it's going to star so-and-so. Now, also, the good thing is, if Hollywood gets their hands on this, they can potentially fix any problems with the rewrite of the script, the adaptation. So even if Harper Lee kind of was just like, I would like some more money, sure. And I think if literary fans are just curious to see it, I think you could still get a very solid movie out of this if maybe Hollywood can, do something interesting with it. I'm curious myself. I have to say I'm not a huge fan entertainment-wise of To Kill a Mockingbird, but I certainly respect it. And it's definitely one of Gregory Peck's most famous movies up there with like Roman Holiday and the man in the gray flannel suit. All right, so that's the first story of the day. Now let's get into some comic book movie news. And that's that Joss Whedon continues to tell anyone that will listen that he's not going to make any more Marvel movies. He's like, oh, you're excited about Age of Ultron? Well, you better be, because it's the last time I'm contributing to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But he's very polite about it. He says, oh, I love this team, I love these people, I love the opportunity they've provided me with, but I'm going to go crazy if I have to tell another one of these stories. And as we've discussed before, I think it's because Joss Whedon is someone who's very, creative himself. He is not someone who just directs someone else's scripts, and, that's a perfectly viable career path, but he's one of those writer-directors and, writer-director-producers, a multi-hyphenate, and he really feels that, hey, I have something to offer the world. Now, I would actually argue with that, because before Avengers, Joss Whedon really didn't have any hits. I mean, he had Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but still nothing that was anywhere near the level of his success with Marvel. So I'd be like, Joss, I know you've got your cult fan base, and that's impressive all on its own, but I don't think that you have it in you, perhaps, to reach the level that you have here. Don't think, look what happened to Nolan. I mean, maybe Christopher Nolan should give him a call and say, hey, I thought that I could continue my career path at the level of my Batman films, but that has not been the case. So we'll see. Maybe Joss will break the mold. Maybe he'll surprise us all. But the other thing that's interesting is he's saying, okay, well, first he said, I thought this was funny, that he said, it's only going to have one character. I'm done with team movies for a while. Team and not teen. And I thought that was really funny. I thought, it probably is very stressful to balance out characters and to make sure they all are well developed and get enough screen time. I think he does a very good job with that, actually, in his first Avengers film. And it looks like he's doing that with Avengers 2, Age of Ultron, which has even more characters. So I can see why he's going crazy a little bit. But then he said, I want to create my own cinematic universe. If I were Kevin Feige, I'd be like, oh, I understand what you're coming from, and I owe you a lot because of your success and what you've done for the brand here, but that still stings a little bit. I'd be like, well, at least I know it hasn't really worked out beforehand, so maybe it won't work again. But I think it's interesting that, for some people, I think that sense of ownership is very important. And I think that what really it is at the end of the day, Joss Whedon says, look at how much money my movies have made. They're beloved by the world over. We're an unstoppable juggernaut, largely thanks to me and my creative influence. But you know what? This isn't mine. I didn't make it. No one can say that these are my characters. I think that's true. I would say that Joss Whedon deserves a lot of credit, but I don't know how much people talk about that. I think certainly not to the degree that they talk about James Gunn and Guardians of the Galaxy, and even the Russo brothers. Right away, everyone was like, the Russo brothers might, direct Avengers: Infinity War, and instead of people being like, oh, no, don't get rid of Joss Whedon, they were like, I would really like that, and I think Joss Whedon might have been like, what the, I think wanting to make sure that he was, integral to the success of something would be, pretty high up on his to-do list. And now he can go and do that because, he certainly can afford it, and I'm sure that he could go back to Marvel if he wanted to, but we'll see how well the Russo brothers do. But I'm curious what you guys think. Do you want Joss Whedon to go back to what he was doing beforehand? Are there those of you out there who want to see more original Joss Whedon creations? Or do you feel that Marvel's more important? And also, do you think that he has it in him to create something as, powerful and successful and popular as his Marvel work on his own? And finally, if you were Kevin Feige, would you also just be a little bit stung by basically one of your top guys saying, I'd like to go create something that competes with this? All right, so that's the second story of the day. Now, the third story of the day is also a big one, and that's that the Star Wars spin-off continues to come together. And it looks like they found their lead with Felicity Jones. She landed it. Rooney Mara, and the star of Orphan Black, was also up for this role, but Felicity Jones got it. Very interesting choice. She's very demure. She's a very subtle, quiet actress. Not someone you would expect to see in some sort of action film. But if you want to play off of, I'm thinking the Princess Leia aspects of the franchise, she could work quite well. Now that's what this spin-off is rumored to be. This is the one that Gareth Edwards is directing from Godzilla. It's also Gary Whitta wrote the first script from Book of Eli, and now he's going to pass it on. He decided to leave. Everyone left on good terms. But Chris Weitz from the Weitz brothers, About a Boy was one of their first big things. I think Chris is the one who went over to Twilight, so he's the one who's willing to sell his soul. He's going to handle this rewrite. And the rumor is that this is a film about a bunch of bounty hunters who want to steal plans for the Death Star. Now, that's a total rumor. It could be a total misdirect and totally not true. And with Felicity Jones in the film, I kind of suspect that that's the case. But it's also interesting they chose her because she also has another, big blockbuster film potentially coming out, and that's the third Da Vinci Code film, where she'll star opposite Tom Hanks. That film's called Inferno, and it's shooting this summer. But I think it's hard to resist getting an Oscar nominee in there, although Rooney Mara as well has that distinction. But still I think Felicity Jones is the best bet out of the three that they had there. Now they're also considering the male lead, and it looks like that this Star Wars, while it was said that it would have a female lead, it might have co-leads. So the other person they're considering for the male role, it's actually between two, and that's Aaron Paul from Breaking Bad and Edgar Ramirez, most recently from Deliver Us from Evil. And some people thought he might be Doctor Strange because of his relationship with director Scott Derrickson, who made that film. That's a very interesting duo there to be up for the same role. They are nothing alike. I would almost be like, well, so you haven't defined this character on the page, you just are looking for an interesting actor that audiences would get excited about. If that's the case, I think both actors actually you could get excited about. I think Aaron Paul, of course, has his Breaking Bad fans. I liked Need for Speed. A lot of people didn't, though, so I don't know how much Aaron Paul can succeed post-Breaking Bad. He should really be angling for some time in Better Call Saul over on AMC, that prequel spin-off show for Breaking Bad. Because, of course, he was also on Exodus, and he just hasn't been having a lot of luck on the big screen. But while Edgar Ramirez, I think, hasn't really captured anyone's attention with his film work, I think this is another diversity play for Star Wars, which is becoming a pretty diverse place in space as they continue to move forward with their films. I think that's great. I just hope, again, it's not something they're wearing on their sleeve, and that diversity, while important to them, is equal with story instead of more important. But to have a female lead and then a Latino actor as the male lead, I think would be a very interesting choice indeed, and could potentially pay off quite well for Star Wars. So I'm curious what you think of this spin-off, and do you think it's shaping up well? And the top three stories of the day as well. That's today's episode. There's no viewer question because we had that viewer contest in the beginning. So please write down below what you think of today's top three stories. Don't forget to enter your tweets. You have until the end of the day, this coming Friday, to do so for John Wick, the top three, and I'll announce those on Monday, the winners, right here on Morning Movie News. All right, thanks so much for watching. Bye.